Welcome to the world of science fiction stories, and don't forget to share and subscribe the channel. After one colony was erased, humanity responded with 700,000 warships. The awakening of fury the stars had always called to humanity for centuries. They gazed upward with wonder, dreaming of what lay beyond their atmosphere. When they finally developed faster-than-light travel and ventured into the cosmos, they discovered they were far from alone. The galaxy teemed with life, civilizations spanning thousands of years, species that had mastered technologies humans had only theorized about. The Galactic Conclave welcomed Earth with what seemed like open arms. 23 species, each with their own histories, cultures, and territories, governed the known galaxy through a complex system of treaties and alliances. Humanity was designated as an emerging intelligence, a classification that came with protections but also restrictions. Your species shows remarkable potential, High Arbiter Valish of the Sindir told the first human ambassadors. His silver-scaled face displayed what humans would later learn was amusement. But potential requires guidance. You will learn much from us. For 15 years, humanity accepted their role. They were given limited access to technologies, allowed to colonize a handful of systems under conclave supervision, and invited to observe conclave proceedings, but never to vote. Earth's governments were grateful for the knowledge, the protection, and the medical advances that had eliminated most human diseases. Children born after first contact grew up in a world where cancer was as obsolete as smallpox, and where clean energy powered everything from personal transports to orbital stations. Admiral Elena Reyes, commander of Earth's modest interstellar fleet, never trusted them. "They're treating us like pets," she told the United Earth Defense Council. "Clever pets, but pets nonetheless." "Patience," the admiral was always the response. "We're still proving ourselves." The Conclave's true test came when the VR emerged from the galactic rim. No one had encountered them before, a hive species with devastating bioappendage and organic ships that consumed everything in their path. The Vral struck first at the Jaxari colonies, devouring 3 worlds before the Conclave could mobilize a response. The Conclave's military forces, primarily composed of the ancient Sindir, the militant Dorsac, and the strategic Palaxian fleets, established defensive lines across 6 sectors. They called for support from all member species, including Earth. Humanity responded with everything they had, not because they were ordered to, but because extinction threatened all sentient life. Earth's fleet was small but innovative, designed by engineers who thought differently than species with millennia of established doctrine. Admiral Reyes led 27 vessels to the front, joining a conclave armada at the Helios threshold, the last line of defense before the VR could reach the core worlds. "Your ships are unproven in major combat," Dorsac Commander Kraz told Reyes. Supporting the rear guard, Rey studied the tactical displays, noted the gaps in the conclave formation, and made a different call. Division 1 will reinforce Sector 7 Alpha. Divisions 2 and 3 will execute flanking maneuvers through the Callisto de Biarritz field. The debris field is too dense for safe navigation. The Palaxian admiral objected, but Reyes answered, "Not for us." When the VR attacked, they expected the standard conclave response, a layered defense relying on overwhelming firepower. Instead, they encountered human ships threading through debris at speeds the conclave considered suicidal, striking from unexpected vectors and using the environment as both weapon and shield. The battle lasted 36 hours. Humanity lost 17 ships, but the VR advance was halted. It was only the beginning. For 2 years, the war raged across the galactic rim. Humanity committed everything, not just military assets, but scientific teams who worked tirelessly to understand biology, diplomatic corps who coordinated refugee relief efforts, and civilian transports retrofitted as medical vessels that ventured into combat zones to rescue the wounded of all species. The war came at a terrible cost. 8 million human lives, 34 colonies, and even Earth itself came under attack. Its orbital defenses barely repelled a Vral strike force. Cities burned, families mourned, but humanity fought on. When the Vral were finally defeated, their hive consciousness severed by a desperate strike team led by humans and Jaxari commandos, the galaxy celebrated. The threat had passed and reconstruction began. Ambassador Michael Chen stood before the conclave chambers. Earth's petition for full membership was displayed behind him. The chamber was silent as he spoke. Humanity has stood with the conclave through its darkest hour. We have bled alongside you, mourned alongside you, and rebuilt alongside you. We ask now to stand as equals, with all rights and responsibilities that entails. The vote was held the following day. 23 species, 23 votes needed. The results were delivered to Earth not through official channels, but leaked by a sympathetic Jaxari diplomat. 22 votes against. Only the Jaxari had supported Earth's petition. The official reasoning was encoded in bureaucratic language. Earth has not yet achieved sufficient sociopolitical stability. Displays concerning tendencies toward independent action require further cultural maturation. But the private communications also leaked told the truth. Humans proved too adaptable during the conflict, with an unnerving capacity for innovation under pressure. Military strategies indicated dangerous unpredictability, best to maintain the current status for several more centuries. They feared what humanity might become. The response on Earth was immediate. Protests erupted in every major city. Veterans of the Vral War threw their medals into the reflecting pools outside conclave embassies. Families who had lost children, parents, or spouses demanded answers. In a small office deep beneath the North American Defense Complex, Admiral Ray sat with General Marcus Santos and Dr. Amara Singh, director of Earth's Advanced Sciences Division. "They used us," Santos said, his voice tight with controlled rage. "They put us on the front lines because we were expendable, and now they're afraid of us." "No," Ray's corrected, "they've always been afraid of us. Now they're terrified." Dr. Singh placed a data crystal on the table. "This contains everything, all the technologies the conclave has restricted, all the scientific advancements they've held back. I've had teams working on reverse engineering and theoretical applications since the war began. Can we build it?" Ray's asked, and Singh nodded. "Not here, too many observers, but I have a proposal." The plan took shape in whispers, in encrypted communications, in facilities built in the shadows of distant moons and asteroid belts. Officially, Earth accepted the conclave decision with diplomatic disappointment. Trade continued, and cultural exchanges proceeded. Human representatives still attended conclave sessions as observers. But from Luna to Europa, from Mars to Titan, humanity worked. Ship designs evolved, incorporating technologies the conclave had fought, technologies beyond human understanding. Weapons platforms were disguised as research stations. Quantum communication networks were established outside conclave monitoring. 5 years passed. The galaxy continued its ancient rhythms. The Vral War became history, taught to school children as the great crisis that was overcome through cooperation. The conclave expanded its influence, adding 2 more species to its ranks, both given full membership status without the waiting period imposed on humanity. Earth's petitions for reconsideration were politely declined. Then came the Mars incident. The Excengery diplomatic vessel, authorized to visit the human colony for cultural exchange, was discovered deploying surveillance devices designed to infiltrate secure networks. When confronted, the Sindir claimed it was standard security protocol. The Earth government filed a formal protest. The conclave dismissed it. 3 days later, a Dorsac military cruiser violated Earth's space, claiming a navigational error. Scans revealed weapons powered and targeting systems active. Admiral Reyes, now commanding Earth's orbital defense grid, ordered a warning shot across the Dorsac bow. The conclave responded with sanctions. Earth's limited trading rights were further restricted, and 3 human colonies were placed under direct conclave supervision for security concerns. In the darkened Situation Room beneath Geneva, President Amarashan faced her advisors. "They're tightening the noose," she said, "testing our boundaries, waiting for us to make a mistake they can use to justify further restrictions." Admiral Rice then stood. "Madame President, it's time. Project Prometheus is ready." The President closed her eyes briefly. "The moment we activate Prometheus, there's no going back. We'll be declaring ourselves." "With respect, Madame President," General Santos interjected. They declared war on us the moment they decided we were too dangerous to be treated as equals. President Chen looked at each face around the table. Scientists, military leaders, diplomats, all veterans of the Vral War, all witnesses to the Conclave's betrayal. The Conclave believes we're children, she said. Finally, it's time they learned how quickly children grow up. Activate Prometheus. Across the Sol system, hidden facilities powered up on distant moons, underground complexes and orbital stations disguised as commercial hubs. Humans moved with practiced precision. The plan they had rehearsed for years was now in motion. At precisely 300 UTC, every Conclave monitoring station in the Sol system went dark. Simultaneously, their quantum entanglement communicators, the technology the Conclave believed humans couldn't possibly understand, fell silent. By the time the first Conclave response fleet arrived at the edge of the Sol system, they found something impossible. A defensive line of ships that shouldn't exist, vessels larger than anything humans had been permitted to build, technology that had been explicitly restricted. And at the center of Earth's defense fleet, the flagship Prometheus. This vessel represented everything the Conclave had feared, human ingenuity unbounded. The Conclave fleet commander opened communications. This is an illegal military buildup. Stand down immediately or face. This is Admiral Elena Ray of the Earth Defense Force, came the response. The Sol system is now a sovereign territory. Any unauthorized entry will be considered an act of war. The Conclave ships held position for 72 hours. The standoff continued as urgent communications flew between the fleet and the Conclave chambers. Finally, a new transmission, High Arbiter Valish himself. Admiral Ray's, this display changes nothing. Earth remains an emerging intelligence under Conclave protection and guidance. Ray smiled. It wasn't a pleasant expression. You should check your long-range sensors, High Arbiter, across Conclave space. At precisely the same moment, previously unknown human outposts activated. Ships emerged from hidden docks, and communication relays that had been dormant sprang to life. While you were watching, Sol Rays continued. We were building, learning, and preparing. The Conclave betrayed humanity. After we sacrificed millions to save you, that debt will now be paid. The galaxy held its breath as humanity's fury, 5 years in the making, was finally unleashed. Reckoning of fire. The first strikes were surgical, not against civilian targets, not against worlds, but against the symbols of Conclave authority. Monitoring stations, military outposts, administrative centers, precise, controlled, and devastating. Humanity had learned the art of warfare against the VR, an enemy that showed no mercy, that adapted rapidly, that exploited every weakness. Those lessons had been refined and enhanced by technologies the Conclave never imagined humans could develop so quickly. This is not possible, Sindir Defense Minister T-Lex said as reports flooded in. Their ships are moving through our defense grids as if they don't exist. High Arbiter Valish watched the strategic display with growing horror. How did they build this fleet in secret? How did they establish these bases without detection? The answer was simple, though the Conclave couldn't see it. Humanity had never been alone in their resentment. During the Vral War, humans had fought alongside many species, formed bonds of blood and sacrifice that transcended official policies. When the Conclave rejected Earth's petition, quiet alliances formed in the shadows. The Jaxari, who remembered that humans had died defending their worlds. The Cry, a non-Conclave species who had watched the war from the margins. The Salani, whose petition for membership had been rejected centuries earlier. All had provided resources, hiding places, and intelligence. Now, as human ships struck across Conclave space, these allies revealed themselves, not in full rebellion, not yet, but in strategic non-action. Defense systems mysteriously malfunctioned, supply shipments were delayed, information became unreliable. 3 days into what the media was already calling the Sovereignty War, High Arbiter Valish called an emergency session of the Conclave. All 25 members were present, either physically or via secure projection. This insurrection must be crushed immediately, Dorsac Representative Krax demanded. Deploy the combined fleet, blockade their colonies, bombard their outposts until they surrender. The Palaxian representatives' tendrils rippled with agitation. The combined fleet is already engaged and not prevailing. Human ships are using technologies we believed were theoretical at best. Their stealth systems render our sensors useless. Their weapons penetrate our strongest shields. How is this possible? Demanded the Vorathi representative. They are primitives, barely 2 centuries into space travel. The Jaxari representative rose slowly. They were primitive enough to die for us, she said, her voice cutting through the chamber. Primitive enough to send their children into battle when our worlds burned. Primitive enough to believe that sacrifice would earn them respect. On Earth, President Chen monitored the unfolding conflict from the Geneva Command Center. Reports came in continuously. Conclave forces retreating from the Arcturus sector, human colonies declaring independence from Conclave oversight, non-human worlds requesting diplomatic channels with Earth rather than the Conclave. Phase 1 is proceeding faster than anticipated, General Santos reported. The Conclave's military response has been fragmented. They never imagined we could strike so many targets simultaneously, said Admiral Reyes, commanding the operation from the Prometheus, while sending regular updates from the front lines. Conclave forces are falling back to their core systems, minimal casualties on both sides. They're confused, not coordinated. And when President Chen asked about the civilian populations, Defense Minister Quan replied, "Our information campaign is working. Every strike is accompanied by broadcasts explaining our actions and assuring non-military targets that they are not at risk." This was crucial to humanity's strategy. They weren't fighting for vengeance, but for recognition, and not just for themselves. The manifesto transmitted across all conclave frequencies made this clear. The age of the conclave's unchallenged authority is over. All sentient species deserve self-determination. All voices deserve to be heard. Not everyone on Earth agreed with this measured approach. A faction within the military, led by Commodore Victor Dalton, argued for more decisive action. "We have them on the defensive," Dalton insisted during a strategy session. "We should press the advantage, disable their major shipyards, target their governmental centers, and force an unconditional surrender." President Chen rejected these proposals. "We are not conquerors. We are not seeking to replace the conclave with human domination. That would make us what they feared we were." The war entered its second week. Conclave forces rallied, mounting counteroffensives against human positions. Battles flared across disputed territories. Both sides took losses, though humanity's advanced shielding and medical technology kept their casualties lower. Then came the transmission that changed everything. The Krith information broker, operating on the fringes of Conclave space, forwarded data to Earth that had been extracted from a heavily secured Sindir facility, the Ascension protocols. Dr. Singh's analysis team worked through the night to decrypt and translate the documents. By morning, their findings had reached President Chen's desk. "It's worse than we thought," Dr. Singh explained, her voice tight. "The Conclave, specifically the Sinindari, Dorsak, and Vorathi, have been manipulating species development for millennia. The emerging intelligence classification isn't about protection or guidance, it's about control." The documents detailed a systematic program, identifying potentially competitive species, guiding their development along predetermined paths, allowing them advancement only when it served conclave interests, and when necessary, engineering conflicts that would cull populations deemed too aggressive or innovative. "The Vral War," President Chen said. "The realization dawning was that it was deliberately escalated." Dr. Singh confirmed. The Vral had been contained for centuries. The Conclave released them, directed them towards specific targets. They needed to test our combat capabilities, our willingness to sacrifice. And when we exceeded their expectations, they decided we were too dangerous. General Santos finished, "Too unpredictable." President Chen sat in silence for a long moment. "Transmit these findings to Admiral Reyes and prepare a galaxy-wide broadcast. Everyone deserves to know what the Conclave really is." The revelation spread like wildfire across Conclave space. Populations that had lived under its guidance for generations now saw the truth. The carefully maintained illusion of benevolent oversight shattered. Protests erupted on dozens of worlds, military units defected, and trade routes collapsed. Facing both external assault and internal fracturing, the Conclave called for an immediate ceasefire and negotiations. President Chen agreed with conditions. The talks would be held on neutral territory with all species represented equally. The historic meeting took place on Nexus Station, a trading hub at the intersection of major space lanes. Representatives from 47 species attended, not just conclave members, but independent worlds, non-aligned species, even nomadic civilizations that had avoided official contact. Admiral Reyes, now serving as Earth's chief diplomat, entered the chamber, flanked by allies, a Jaxery commander, a Cry information specialist, and a Sini elder. Across the table sat High Arbiter Valish, his silver scales dulled with stress, flanked by the remaining loyal conclave representatives. "You have torn apart a system of governance that has maintained peace for 10,000 years, Valish began. "Peace for whom?" countered Rice. "Security for whom? Advancement for whom?" The Ascension protocols make it clear. The conclave never intended equality. You wanted subjects, not partners. The negotiations lasted 17 days. There were threats, recriminations, and moments when it seemed all-out war would resume. But gradually, a new framework emerged. The Galactic Conclave would be dissolved. In its place would stand the Interstellar Assembly, a governing body where all species held equal voting rights, where technological development was not restricted based on arbitrary classifications, and where military forces would be maintained independently but with transparent oversight. "This is madness," Valish protested as the final agreements took shape. "You cannot simply erase 10 millennia of established order." "We're not erasing it," Admiral Rice replied. "We're evolving beyond it. That's what living species do." When the Assembly Charter was signed, 39 species endorsed it immediately. Within a month, that number grew to 53. The former conclave powers found themselves with a choice: adapt to the new reality or face isolation. One by one, they joined, some grudgingly, some with relief that the burden of maintaining control had been lifted. On Earth, celebrations were tempered with solemn remembrance. Memorial services honored those lost in both the Royal War and the sovereignty conflict. Monuments were erected not to military might, but to the principles that had guided humanity's actions: dignity, self-determination, and the right of all sentient beings to chart their own course among the stars. In her address to the first full session of the Interstellar Assembly, President Chen spoke not of victory but of responsibility. "Humanity did not fight this war to replace one dominant power with another," she said. "We fought because we believe that diversity, in form, in thought, in approach, is the galaxy's greatest strength. We fought because we saw what happens when fear of difference leads to the suppression of potential." She gestured to the assembled representatives. Hundreds of species now stand as equals. This assembly faces challenges no single species could overcome alone: climate collapse on worlds whose atmospheres were damaged during the conflicts, refugee crises spanning multiple sectors, and economic systems in transition. But we face these challenges together, not as rulers and subjects, but as partners. Admiral Reyes, watching from Earth, nodded in quiet satisfaction. The path ahead would not be easy. Old powers did not relinquish control willingly. New alliances would be tested. But for the first time, humanity stood among the stars, not as newcomers to be guided, not as threats to be contained, but as architects of a more just cosmic order. The betrayal that had ignited humanity's rage had forged not just liberation for Earth, but for countless species who had waited centuries for the courage to challenge what had always been in the vastness of space. A new era had begun.